Most of your competition are going to be people who don't do short-term rentals. This is their first real estate deal ever. You can't just offer a house. A lot of people are booking short-term rentals over hotels for that unique stay experience.
And how many deals did you look at before you found the one deal that you ended up closing on?
Hundreds.
Hundreds. What are like key things that every Airbnb needs to do in order to create a great experience?
At the end of the day, the is very important. And so...
Welcome back to the Wealthy Business Podcast. I'm your host, Javi Chavez, COO of 5 7 to 8 figure companies. I have my next guest, Diya Liu, and she's a powerhouse. She was an engineer and a lawyer, which is crazy just in and of itself. Then she is now a hotel owner, Airbnb's host. She's crushing it. So, Diya, how do I buy my first hotel?
Wow, going straight to the meat.
Yeah, straight
today.
to the meat.
So if you are looking to get started in hotels in 2024, then I would say that first you have to have some sort of hospitality experience or some sort of commercial real estate experience, just so that you're not just going from crawling to running. But provided that you already have that experience, I would say that you can go either look for deals on Craigslist, LoopNet, or some of the sites where you can find hotel listings. You can also go to hotel brokers that specialize in dealing and trading hotels. And you can also just reach out to hotel owners completely, off market. And so a lot of great hotel deals are going to be off market just because it is an active business. So hotel owners don't want their employees to know that the hotel is for sale. So that's a little bit different than other commercial assets or residential assets. But once you do that, you have to analyze a hotel just like any other business. And of course, get financing, which is the really hard part in 2023 and 2024. For sure. And then, of course, if you want to raise money, that's the great time to do it once you have secured your initial financing, and then you close.
Nice. What's the minimum capital requirement like for the hotels that you're buying?
So a lot of people have this common misconception that hotel owners are going to be super, super big, powerful figures like the Hiltons or, the CEO of Marriott or something like that. But a lot of hoteliers are actually mom and pop operators. And so it really depends on the size of the hotel. So you can go from a 13-unit hotel that we bought for $372, believe it or not, to a 76-unit hotel, which is the largest one that we bought for $3.6. So the capital to buy the 13-unit hotel was under $100,000. But of course, for the 76-unit hotel is going to be a little bit more. I think that was around $600,000.
Wow. And so getting into this, so you said you bought like a 13 unit, and what did you do to add value to it? Or did you make it super fun and cute, or how what does it look like now?
Yeah, so before I started with hotels, I started with short-term rentals or Airbnbs first. And so one of my specialties is really to create memorable designs and experiences for our guests. And so we really translated that over into hotel investing. And a lot of our hotel designs are also really fun, really eye-catching. And then on the operations piece, we really focus on bringing technology into the really super outdated hotel software and hotel systems and processes. And so
talk to me about that really quick. I don't want to cut you off, but so what do you mean by adding softwares and so is it the check-in software, or what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so when we bought our first hotel, which is 48 units, the person who was at the front desk really didn't have any sort of high tech. So by that, I mean that they're still using pen and paper to keep track of guests who are coming in that day. They also had guests who were arriving before the booking confirmation will land in their inbox.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so nothing was really tracked digitally. Everything was done by pen and paper. So which rooms are clean, which rooms are dirty, check-in, check-outs, all those things were done with pen and paper. So my business partner, he is the more operations arm of the business. He has a tech background and he's really made most of those changes to basically check-in, check-outs, turnovers, all those things are now digitally captured. So now we check-in guests with an iPad, for example, instead of pen and paper.
That's awesome. And it's crazy to think how many hotel owners are still like stuck in the Stone Ages, so to speak. But I believe it, because so sometimes when I check into some of these like boutique hotels or whatever when I'm traveling, that is what it's like. So where do you have a specific like market that you're buying a lot of these hotels in, or like your specific buy box?
Yeah, so our more general buy box has always been within 2 to 3 hour driving distance from major growing metros. So what is 2-3 hours driving distance from Austin, Dallas, Raleigh, Atlanta, Charlotte, for example. And so that's always been, whether it's for short-term rentals or for hotels, that's where I focused on. With respect to hotels, because operationally it's just easier to buy another hotel or short-term rental that's in close proximity to where we already have stuff. Right now, because we already have stuff in Texas and we already have stuff in Arkansas and North Carolina, those are our main markets.
That makes a lot of sense. And the more people that I interview, the more that I keep on hearing the same exact markets. So like, obviously it makes sense, right? All these secondary markets, there's a lot of opportunity for people to grow because, it's tough in like the LA, New Yorks and all that. So with these specific markets, like you said, you're looking for things that are closer than closer to the things that you've already created, right? How did you like determine that, I want to go into Austin, I want to go into Charlotte and Raleigh? Is it just because like the population growth, that kind of stuff? Or like how are you evaluating your markets?
Yeah, so Texas was a easy choice just because that's where my home base is. So I've been a longtime Austinite. So I really understand that.
I've never heard that one.
Longtime Austinite, local. And so it just makes it really easy to do stuff in Texas. And we're able to outcompete a lot of other folks who are out-of-state investors who don't understand the Texas market or the Austin market because we have more information, right? It's all about a war on information. So when it comes to North Carolina, we are buying 2.5 hours outside of Raleigh in the Blue Ridge Mountains, just because we are usually buying within driving distance from these major markets, not necessarily in these major markets. And then, and for that, it's just because North Carolina has been booming, South Carolina has been booming. A lot of multifamily investors are buying within the 2-3 hours radius of us. And so we know that the population growth, the job growth, and all those things are going to be really strong. And that means that tourism growth is going to also be strong. So rather than just following lists of the top markets to invest in for short-term rentals or Airbnbs or hotels, of course, I don't even think there's a list for top markets to invest in for hotels. If there is, I need to get on that. But
somebody send that in.
Yeah. But I just try to figure out, based on data projections and understanding, hey, this is where the population is moving. We don't really have to buy in those markets, but what's outside of those markets or driving distance within those markets.
Love it. So you mentioned a business partner as well. So how big is your team right now?
So how it's structured right now is that I'm the one finding all the deals as well as raising the capital for all the deals, but I'm not the one operating any of the deals, so that I can just focus on what I'm really good at, which is acquisitions and fundraising. But my business partner has about 30 people directly reporting to him.
Wow. And that's all within your organization, right?
Yes.
And so what are those, or who are those 30 people?
So that includes people who are the boots on the ground, so to speak. So front desk for hotels or cleaners and maintenance guy. I think we have a full-time maintenance guy for between the two hotels that we have in Arkansas.
Got it.
And all the way to revenue management, which is really important for hotels, to customer service for short-term rentals and hotels, to design, to all sorts of different things. We have a lot of different people.
That's awesome. And how you mentioned something that we tell a lot of our entrepreneurs, which is, go find partners that complement you and go find partners that allow you to go do more of the thing that you are really good at, right? So you mentioned you're out finding deals, acquiring, properties, underwriting, raising capital, and because you have a good partner, you're able to just triple down on that thing. Did you figure that out by yourself? Did it take you some other bad partnerships? Like, how did you just land on that? Because you're like, well, duh, like that's the logical thing to do. But like, how did you reach that conclusion?
I think I always knew that I can't scale by myself because nobody is ever going to be good at everything.
For sure.
And so one of the things that I knew from the beginning that I don't want to do is the day-to-day operations, just because I've done that when I was self-managing my first 9 short-term rentals. And it took so much time. It took a lot of patience. And I feel like maybe I don't have as much patience as some other people may have. And so I just realized that early on that my skill set is really to find creative deals and closing really, really amazing deals. And then also to fundraise and go on podcasts or shows or whatever. And then also, finally, I am still doing some of the interior design for a lot of our properties, but I think I'm also going to outsource that in the near future as well.
Nice. That makes sense. Just keep tripling down on the stuff that you're really, really good at. So talk to me about how you've been like a lawyer and an engineer and now obviously an investor. So what was that progression like? 'Cause that's so interesting.
Yeah. So if you look at my resume, I always get this question when I was interviewing for jobs, just because everyone's so confused by my resume. But so I double majored in chemical engineering and biochemistry. And then I realized that I really was not good at research, even though my parents wanted me to get a science degree. That's a PhD at one of the Ivy Leagues, right? So that was supposed to be my track ever since I was a little kid. Like my parents would buy me all sorts of science books, hoping that I will follow that track. Yeah. And so it really growing up, that was the only option presented to me was that, of course, I'm going to be a scientist. Everyone in my family is a scientist or a doctor. So that's the only path that was available. But when I got to college, I realized that there were other paths, and I became an entrepreneur, and I started a fashion website and actually got featured by a lot of the larger publications for fashion. My parents, of course, were not so happy and told me that fashion is just always going to be a hobby. So then I went back to the drawing board and I was like, what can I do that can supplement being an entrepreneur in the near future? And I went to a job fair and someone told me someone was a chemical engineer and he was the CEO of a company.
Ooh, okay.
But he told me he went to law school first. So I was like, that's it, law school. I'm going to law school. And so
what did your parents think about you pivoting to, you're in engineering and then now you're pivoting to law school? Were they cool with it? 'Cause it's still a high achievement. Most parents would probably be pretty happy with that. But how was that conversation?
So they actually really didn't like it. So for the first 5 years, they did not like that decision. But then they realized that having a good job at a great law firm was actually a really smart choice. And then I quit that job, obviously, to do real estate. So now I actually disappointed my parents 3 times. Once when I decided to add chemical engineering as a degree instead of just doing biochemistry. And then the second time when I decided to go to law school instead of graduate school. Yeah. And then the third time was when I quit my hard-earned education and job to go full-time into real estate.
Yeah, so how were like Thanksgiving and Christmases for a little while?
So I feel like they still don't get it. I think whenever they ask me about real estate and they really do try to understand it, they're still really confused, like why anyone would want to take on debt, all those things.
For sure. And so how were you able, because a lot of people, especially people who are in high achievers who end up doing what their parents want them to do and they end up getting great jobs and they're doing really well. But like, how did you overcome that? Like, I don't want to call it fear, but like that, I can't think of a better word for it. It really is just like that fear of disappointing your parents, of going your own direction. So like, how did you overcome that? Because a lot of people stay stuck in that.
I guess since I disappointed my parents 3 times, that just never crossed my mind. But honestly, I was raised to not be entrepreneurial, but I think I was always just going to be an entrepreneur. Sooner or later, I was going to have to disappoint my parents and just carve my own path. Because ever since I was a kid, I would try to make arts and crafts and try to sell them and try to figure out my expenses and my profits and etc. So I think that was just always a bone that I had. Yeah. But going back, I think it's really hard, but at the end of the day, if you know that you're an entrepreneurial person, I think that's really, you're never going to be happy working for anyone else.
I agree 100%, right? And it's tough because I think there's a lot of people who they go to the grave not experiencing that entrepreneurial bug and always having some sort of resentment towards their parents or even their job because like they worked so hard to hit this point and then they don't feel fulfilled. And so I think for anybody who's listening, make sure that you guys, like, if you have that bug, go scratch it, or that itch, go scratch it, because it's, at least you can say you tried and you can always go back, right?
Yeah.
So what's next for you? Because you mentioned that you just went to like this goal setting workshop with Brandon Turner. So what's on the horizon for 2024? So
there's a few things that are on my goal list, but one is to focus a little bit more on content, as you know, and that's because I really have been just in the weeds of daily real estate acquisition. So I spend, I would say, probably on average at least 8 hours, if not 10 plus hours a day on acquisitions and real estate transactions and et cetera.
Wow.
And so really taking a step back and figuring out what is the highest and best use of my time. And I feel like it's really educating people about hotel investing and educating people about short-term rentals, or educating people really just about financial freedom through real estate investing. I think that's what I want to focus on a little bit more in 2024. And with respect to my real estate business, right now, we have just recently bought a lot of different short-term rentals in Austin just because the market has come down a little bit in Austin. So I want to reshift that focus to our other 2 markets that we already have properties in and to kind of diversify a little bit more and not just be Austin heavy. So now we're shifting focus to Northwest Arkansas acquisitions as well as North Carolina acquisitions.
Interesting. What's the, so in Northwest Arkansas, are you predominantly looking for short-term rentals, hotels, or both?
I'm looking for small to mid-sized multifamilies as well as hotels for the most part, but I'm open to buying single families if they fit a certain set of parameters.
What's the average 4-unit building cost out there in Northwest Arkansas?
So we are focusing on specifically Bentonville and Rogers. So that's the more expensive towns in Northwest Arkansas. So it really depends on how close it is to downtown. So it can go usually probably around $500K-ish for a duplex or triplex.
Wow.
If it's close to downtown, if it's further out, you can probably buy that for way less.
And those are pretty nice units, you would say?
So those are actually kind of ugly units.
Okay, yep.
Unless you're buying off market, which I have a few colleagues are just buying off market, so they're able to buy at significantly lower price points. But believe it or not, guys, Arkansas is actually really wealthy, especially Northwest Arkansas. So that's where Walmart headquarters are. So because of that, there's a lot of C-suite people in Bentonville. And so everything downtown is going to be well over $1 million.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting. I would have never guessed, but makes sense. So how do you feel like your education and your background has made you a better real estate investor?
I think everything on my very, very scattered resume has helped in terms of what I do today. And that's actually why I love hospitality, because I get the numerical analysis from my engineering background. I also get the design, understanding hospitality design from all the things I did in fashion. I also dabbled in art when I was a kid, so that really helps with design, of course. And then finally, the legal background, which a lot of people ask me, hey, was law school a waste of your time? And I say that Absolutely not. So even though I'm not acting as an attorney for any of our deals, for the most part, we do have real estate attorneys, land use attorneys, syndication attorneys, and et cetera. Understanding how to talk to them as an attorney to attorney is a very different conversation, a level of conversation than just talking as an investor to attorney.
Oh, I bet, right? Because like you're able to not necessarily call them on their BS, but you're able to just like communicate more effectively, understand their language as well. So I think that's huge. And so what are some common pitfalls for somebody who's just getting into the short-term rental space? Like, what are things to avoid?
I think one of the top things to avoid as a first-time Airbnb or short-term rental investor would be to buy into the hype and just think that if you buy short-term rentals, you're going to do great, especially in 2024 and beyond. And I think that the reason is because it used to be very, very easy to buy pretty much any house in the right market, the right neighborhood, and put IKEA furniture in it. No offense to IKEA, but and then basically make 2-3x more than a net cash flow than a long-term rental. So those days are gone. So a lot of people still think, because of just looking at maybe old YouTube videos or looking at older content, they think, oh my gosh, it's going to be so easy. They're listening to podcasts. But really, you have to understand how to run it as a hospitality professional because you're basically running the world's smallest hotel at that point, and understanding that you have to have a hospitality bone in your body, and you have to understand design. You have to get the marketing right.
So when it comes to hospitality specifically, like what are like the key things that every Airbnb or every small hotel host needs to do in order to create a great experience?
I think a lot of people forget that at the end of the day, the bed is very important. And so I feel like so many people try to skimp on the mattress quality or the sheets or the bed frame, which is so important because I've definitely seen so many first-time operators get the world's worst bed frame. I bet, I'm just like, that's going to last maybe a month, if so.
For sure. Yeah. So. I can think to when I'm staying at Airbnbs, and some of the most memorable ones are the ones where I've had just like a terrible mattress. Like I sleep poorly. I'm like, dude, the pillows are rough. Like, so that's huge. And when I think about like my most luxurious hotel stays, they always have like some of the best mattresses. So I think that's something that's very much overlooked. So I would agree with that. But what else is there? So like, I got to get a good mattress. What are other keys to creating a great experience?
I think right now, it's not just a great place to rest your head anymore. I think a lot of people are booking short-term rentals over hotels for that unique stay experience. So you can't just offer a house. It shouldn't look like a lot of people are dabbling in flipping or long-term rentals and short-term rentals and mid-term rentals at the same time. And they kind of treat everything with the same lens. But that's a really bad way to look at things. And so I think that you have to treat short-term rentals like short-term rental business. And that key is basically focusing on the design and experience. So to provide that, you have to come up with a theme and stick to it. So one of the main mistakes is that a lot of people try to cheap out and not hire an interior designer. And then they end up just putting together a lot of furniture that is really random and doesn't really look like they belong together.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so for somebody who doesn't have an interior design background, might not necessarily have the budget to go bring somebody like yourself or an interior designer on, like how can I easily, like for me example, I have like very minimal personal interior design skills. How can I bring somebody on, or how can I like find those resources to create like a great environment?
So let me preface that it should be just like renovation. Design should be in part of your budget. So like let's say if you're doing a major renovation, it's not like you can just skimp on hiring an architect, let's say. So I think if you're doing short-term rentals in 2023 and beyond, 2024 and beyond, hiring someone, even just as a virtual design consultant, should already be included in your budget. And if the numbers do not work, don't buy that deal, first of all.
Love it.
Especially if you do not have a design bone in your body and you don't have like someone else in your immediate circle that you can lean on to help you. I definitely think that you just have to budget that in. The second thing is that if, let's say, you already have something and you just want to try short-term rentals, or you ended up miscalculating and now you don't have that budget for design, I would just probably pick everything in 2 or 3 accent colors and stick to that instead of having 10 accent colors in the room. Having just 1 or 2 and then keeping everything really neutral. So if you did everything, let's say gray, white, and black, but then you had green as the accent color, then you just got to stick to green. Don't have green and then yellow and then red because you can do something like that if you do have a design, perspective. But if you do not, it just looks really chaotic.
That makes sense. And talk to me about like one of the biggest lessons or mistakes you've learned or you've made in this space.
I think one of the biggest mistakes is a few things, honestly. One of the first things is that I really didn't ask for help early on or outsource really in that same vein. So a lot of things I just try to do by myself. Whether it's when I first bought my house, I didn't really go into hiring a mentor or taking any sort of real estate investing classes or attending any sort of real estate conferences before I bought my first house. And I luckily bought in Austin, so the market appreciation really glossed over most of my mistakes, and I was able still to make a profit. But I hired the wrong electrician at my house, basically almost burned down. So that was probably not the great experience because I tried to cheap out on my electrician. And, now in my years of experience, I'm like, okay, the cheapest electrician is not always a good thing. Yeah. Right? So
9 times out of 10, it probably isn't.
Yeah. And so they're cheap for a reason. And so that's what I learned. But really, it's just asking for help earlier, whether it's going to real estate conferences and networking or is to find your tribe of people who are trying to achieve the same thing that you are, or hiring a mentor or a business coach or taking classes or any of the above, really hiring professionals for interior design or hiring architects and all those things. You're just going to need help as you scale, like maybe consulting an attorney or maybe consulting a CPA and all those things. Don't find out after the fact that, oh my gosh, I could have saved so much money or I could have avoided this mistake.
For sure, because the investment that you usually are going to make into like an event, a mentor, or whatever is going to be far less than the price you're going to pay in mistakes made, time wasted, money wasted. So getting somebody who's going to be able to shorten that gap, I think, is so important. And quick plug, we got WealthCon coming up. So that's the next real estate event, January. Better get there because there's going to be a ton of fun. We got some tickets for you too afterwards if you want to come by. But yeah, so I think the mentorship is another common theme. Everyone that I talk to who's been successful has found some sort of mentor or attended something where because you just got to get paid to get the knowledge. It's the same thing, right? Like there's no real estate master's degree, right? And in terms of like the real estate investing world and stuff like that, there is, but they don't teach you the same stuff that, you learn from these mentors, right? And so I think that's so important. And obviously, like you're no stranger to education. So, you mentioned that you're going to start teaching. Like, what does that look like for you? Yeah,
so I already have courses around short-term rental investing and then hotel investing. And kind of to elaborate on your point about education is that one of the biggest difference when you're jumping from short-term rental investing into hotel investing is that now you're playing in a different league of investors. So when you are buying a short-term rental, most of your competition are going to be people who don't do short-term rentals full-time or hospitality full-time. There are a lot of people who might be even this is their first real estate deal ever. They have no clue. Their day job is something totally unrelated to real estate investing, and they're just dabbling in it. And so that's really your competition. And so it's really, really easy. As long as you just maybe take a few courses, watch a few YouTube videos, maybe hire one mentor, then you're basically going to be way, way more advanced than all your colleagues. But with hotels, it's very different because now you're competing with people who may have family members who have been in the hotel business for the last few decades, and you kind of grew up around the hotel business, or you went to school for hospitality. And so you're really competing with people who have professional revenue managers in-house. You're competing with people who have the backing of franchises and training of franchises. So you're really, really needing to step it up.
Totally. So obviously with your organization now, so like how long did it take you to really build, like, and I'm sure this is why you have your partner too, but how long did it take you to really build out detailed processes, SOPs for all of your employees, so that way you can have everything be, standardized across your different properties?
So we're constantly iterating. So I don't think it's ever going to be a static thing. So we're still doing that a few years in. And so once again, he's the day-to-day operations person. And so he has actually written some of his own programs to deal with a lot of the day-to-day hotel problems that we have. And so I also want to mention that it also depends on the size of the hotel. So a 13-unit hotel is going to have a totally different set of systems and processes than our 76-unit hotel, which has way more front desk. And, it's currently a franchise hotel that we're turning into a boutique hotel. So we still have to kind of retrofit what we do elsewhere to the very, very outdated franchise software and system that they have.
Got it. And so what are like the rules around changing it from a franchise to now like a different hotel? Like, do you have to like talk to the franchise, like the main franchise? Like, what does that look like? Or are you just kind of able to do it immediately?
So there's usually a franchise agreement that governs all your franchise hotels. And so one of the things that we are looking at when we're first purchasing a hotel, one of the first documents that we ask for is a franchise agreement because it can really be expensive to break from the franchise. And it can be up to over $500,000 depending on which franchise it is and how stringent they are with the sort of breaks. And a lot of brands also have very, very stringent requirements for the operators. Like if you, for example, have never owned or operated a Marriott or Hilton, you may have to hire a management company that already has a pre-existing relationship with that brand. And there's no exceptions to that rule. It doesn't matter if you already have 10 hotels, but if they're not of that franchise, they're going to have those requirements. And so it really depends on the franchise. And so the first step when you're looking at a franchise hotel for purchase or anything like that is to hire a franchise attorney. But with regards to converting, we bought this hotel at an auction. So we had 24 hours to figure out how much a franchise break fee was. And it could be up to $500,000, right? So that's kind of scary. So it's actually a really long and funny story, and maybe about 40 plus calls that I had to make in 24 hours to figure out whether or not the franchise fee was going to be a significant portion of our invested capital before we wire in 10% of the transaction value as non-refundable earnest money.
Oh my gosh. So how much was it, if you don't mind me asking?
The non-refundable earnest money or the franchise fee? The franchise fee. So it ended up not being that much. So it ended up being only $1,000 per key. So that was $76,000.
Oh, I mean, relatively speaking, it's still expensive, but not terrible.
Yeah. We were expecting around 100 plus. So that was a good news for us.
So talk to me about the numbers on that 76 units. So like, what was the total purchase price? Like, how much did you set aside for renovations? Like, what were the numbers?
Yeah, so we were able to get this for a steal. So it was an auction property, and we were able to buy it for $3.61 million. And CBRE appraised it day one at $6.5 million. So because of that, the banks gave us super, super amazing financing terms because they were comfortable that there was already so much built-in equity. And so the renovations around $1 million plus or minus for the refurnishing and the renovation of the property. But we didn't have to come up with most of that because of bank's financing it.
Oh, that's so sweet. And what number was this in like your hotel? About like how many deals have you done up to this point?
We had already bought 3 hotels, and one of them was already 1 hour away from this. So that's why we were very confident in this one.
I love it. So how nervous were you the first hotel that you purchased? Were you just like ready to go? Or what did that jump look like from, you're crushing in the short-term rental space and now you want to move into hotels? So what was that thought process like? Like, how were you feeling in that moment?
So it definitely wasn't a split-second decision. Meaning, by that meaning, I made my mind up relatively quickly. I had always wanted to get into hotels ever since maybe a midway through my short-term rental journey. I was already thinking about buying hotels as the next step. But it took me a whole year of trying to buy hotels and learning about hotels and really just spending every single day making offers, paying for education, getting educated on the topic, as well as networking with other hoteliers before I was able to buy my very first hotel. So it was a very, very long process. So yeah, to answer your question, I guess what crossed my mind really, it wasn't really fear because I already knew that I wanted to do it. It just took a long time from when I wanted to do it and taking action daily before I was able to do it.
Got it. And what was that first deal? What did it look like?
So that one was a 48-key hotel in Northwest Arkansas. That is about an hour away from our 76 unit, which is our 4th hotel. And we were able to negotiate seller financing on the deal, which is huge because the seller didn't really have a lot of financials on it. And so we were able to get it at $750 for 48 keys, which was obviously a very solid price.
Yeah.
And get, I think it was 6% seller financing interest on
Got it. I love that. So what motivates you?
I really think that, it's not just the money. It definitely isn't because I think hotels and short-term rentals require much more work, I think, than, let's say, raising money for multifamily or something that an asset class that more people already understand. So I think at the end of the day, yes, it does cash flow more than, let's say, multifamily or some of these other asset classes. But I just love traveling. I love sharing that travel experience with other people. I love design. I love the challenges that come with hotel investing and understanding how to revolutionize the hotel industry. I still travel all the time, and sometimes my check-in process takes 45 minutes plus while I'm just waiting in the hotel lobby, and I'm just a single traveler. But imagine if you have 3 screaming kids with you, right? That is a very horrible way to spend 45 minutes.
For sure.
And so really just trying to figure out what can make travel more enjoyable and less stressful for everyone. And and really just making it less antiquated.
Yeah, I love that. And you mentioned something before the podcast that you were like a full-time traveler. So how many different states do you think, or how many different cities do you think you've been in this last year?
I honestly have lost count just because for example, I'm probably going to be traveling to Peru after this, and Laguna Beach, and Playa del Carmen, Mexico in the next just in the next few trips, right? So that's all the way up to February, and then Miami as well. So I travel a lot. So I honestly have lost count at this point, but I probably spend a lot more time away from Austin historically than I have been in Austin. But that is also one of my other goals that I have set for 2024 is to travel less and more intentionally and trying to do more slow traveling and spending more time in Austin and Bentonville and just work on all the goals I have.
Nice. So define slow traveling. What do you mean?
So, for example, staying a month or at least 2-3 weeks somewhere instead of just doing 2-day trips, which I did a lot of 2-3 day trips when I was first getting into hotel investing just because I wanted to figure out all the markets there are in the US that I can buy short-term rentals and hotels in. So I really, really traveled a lot in 2020 and 2021 inside the US, whether it's through road trips or through flights.
How fun. What is your favorite city in the US?
Oh, that's so hard. I think this is not necessarily my favorite place to invest in, but I just love Sedona, Arizona, just because it's so pretty.
I love Sedona. I've been there once, and it's so beautiful. And it's such like a interesting like town and like vibe. I don't know what it is, but you feel there's definitely like this cool energy there. I love Sedona. Yeah. I would love to get an Airbnb there. I think like that would be like, I know they're like, it's tough, but like just something for me, honestly, the renting it out and having something would just be a bonus, but like top tier spot.
I love it.
Yeah. Would you, I know they're like building more hotels and stuff, but it's probably tough to get into that market, right?
For Sedona?
Yeah.
I think it's easier to buy a bed and breakfast or a building that used to be a bed and breakfast at some point, but now it's just sold as a house than to buy an actual hotel.
That makes sense. Yeah. So Sedona's beautiful. Where like, so is there an ideal city that you'd want to buy a hotel in? I know you mentioned like your current markets, but like long term down the road, is there anywhere that you would be like, you know what, like I would love to have a place here?
I don't actually think we really think about that way. A lot of our deals came from first understanding that we like this deal.
Yeah, of course.
And then we expand outwards to figure out, do we like this market? Just because it's so hard to find deals that make sense and it's easy to get financing in. But if I can buy something in Hawaii, that would be awesome just for a lot of personal reasons. But also because of the strict short-term rental regulations, I just think that that's a smart long-term play.
For sure.
And it doesn't really have as much seasonality across all, other markets, right? So a lot of places will be empty for almost 6 months. So Hawaii, a lot of places in Hawaii wouldn't have that.
Totally.
But that's kind of a long-term play. So it really has to be the right deal for us to want to go there.
For sure. I'm just wishful thinking. But as far as income goes, like, do you guys have any like revenue goals for 2024? Like, as far as what you're kind of trying to generate?
I think honestly right now for our hotels, we are just wrapping up renovation on our projects and looking to at least 2x our revenue compared to when we bought it.
Okay.
And so for some of ours, because the sellers' financials were almost non-existent, that goal has already been met. So in that case, we're looking to 1.5x compared to how we did last year.
Okay. There we go. That's nice. And what would you say is like because you mentioned a few things, but you mentioned like lifestyle, you mentioned, a few other motivations, but like, will there ever be a point where, where you want to retire and it's enough? Or do you think this is something that you just want to do for the rest of your life?
I honestly, so I think right now, and I know a lot of people in this industry, they have a certain goal, like this many units, and then I'm not going to continue to actively do acquisitions. But my hobby, as sad as it sounds, is acquisitions and fundraising. I love it. I just really do like it. I love design. I love acquisitions. I love real estate. I probably spend more time on Zillow and Crexi and LoopNet than I spend on, pretty much any other sites. And so I don't really see myself retiring anytime soon. I may end up, for example, shifting focus and maybe focusing on different type of real estate investing. So as of right now, I'm pivoting more to creating awareness around real estate investing than just doing real estate investing day to day. But I still honestly love all those things around real estate investing. So I guess I'm kind of boring.
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's funny because when I think about my hobbies and like what else I do, I mean, I'll play golf and then everything else is just business related. Like, 'cause that's what fulfills me and that's what gets me excited. And so I don't think it's a bad thing to have untraditional hobbies or to have hobbies that are related to your personal and your business goals. It is funny though when I do talk to other people, they're like, oh, like what else do you do? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just working it until whenever, right? So I love it. So what is like one piece of knowledge that you would love to like if you, and this is kind of I ask this question every time, but if you had to leave the earth tomorrow, what's like one thing that you would want people to know? And it can be business related, it can be personal related, whatever.
Oh man, that's hard. Let me think about this for a sec.
Yeah.
I think one thing is to just focus on what you're passionate about. And also, which seems really generic, and also just focusing on yourself. I think a lot of people are looking for that universe, the universe to give them that one chance or one opportunity or, whatever it is, like in your personal life, like in dating or in business or looking for like that one chance or whatever. But you really have to create your own opportunities. And then also just, what's the best way to say this? But yeah, I think really focusing on creating your own chances and just constantly trying. Like, I think a lot of people think that, she must have gotten really lucky to do all those things and given all those opportunities. But I actually just take a lot of shots at things. And, I got all those fashion opportunities, which is really random because I just had this thought that I probably can do it, even though there's chances of a chemical engineer being able to win. By the way, I won this fashion contest randomly, but it was kind of random for me to apply for it in the first place because I have totally no qualifications related to this at all. And everyone else who competed had a fashion-related degree. Yeah. But here I am as a chemical engineer, and I was able to win that contest. So just really taking chances.
100%. And I think you touched on something where every entrepreneur has to be, I don't want to call it delusional, but you have to have this this unbelievable belief in yourself to that, you know what, I could do that. I'm willing to try. And you said, you take a lot of shots. I think every entrepreneur takes a lot of shots and they put themselves out there. And you can call it God, the universe, or whoever. Like you said, people wait for those opportunities and they think that it's just going to come. Like, if I manifest something, it's just going to attract. But the thing that they don't tell you is, the doors will open, but you have to be in the right position and you have to have the right skill set to be able to recognize the opportunities that are in front of you and be able to go capitalize on those. And I think that's the second part to what a lot of people. They're waiting for those opportunities, but I think you're a good testament to you have to put yourself in the right situation to go achieve that.
And I think that social media, a lot of people focus on social media and they think that these people are posting about all their wins.
Oh, of course.
And so it must be that one thing that just made all the difference. But it's a lot of small, boring things that made all the difference and that are just not captured on cameras. Like, I'm not going to post the fact that, I'm doing a setup and it's 3 a.m. or something like that, right? Like, I'm not going to post that on social media. But that doesn't mean that I didn't do a lot of those things in order to get here.
Yeah, and how many deals did you look at before you found the one deal that you ended up closing on, right? There's a lot. Hundreds, right? And it's the same thing. People don't see the other work, right? There was, I was upstairs right before this. We made a couple mistakes on some of our CRM stuff, and we're in there doing spending hours. That's what I was doing last night too, just fixing a bunch of issues. And no one sees that stuff. They just get to see the fun part.
Yeah, they just see me traveling around, dancing, hiking, etc. But they don't see me cover in paint or etc.
And there's beauty in the grind for sure. And if you didn't do that stuff, then the rewards wouldn't be as worth it either.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. Well, that's a good way to end it. So where can people find out more about you?
People can find me on social media. So the best way is really Instagram. I am at DIYAESQ, where I post a lot of content around the short-term rental as well as hotel deals we do. We show them how we do it. We show them how we finance it. And so I give a lot of tips on a daily basis.
Love it. Well, thanks again, guys. We'll see you soon.